My name is Rachel Miller. And this is a part of my life I'm not proud of, a story I never thought I would tell. It's about a moment of weakness that shattered a marriage I once believed would last forever. I met Jonathan when I was 22. He was the kind of man who made you feel safe just by standing next to him, grounded, warm, dependable. We were college sweethearts who talked about everything: life, dreams, fears, and what kind of dogs we'd have one day. When he proposed by the lake where we had our first date, I didn't hesitate. I said yes, crying and laughing all at once. For a long time, we were happy. Genuinely. I worked from home as a graphic designer, and he climbed the ladder in tech consulting. Our apartment was cozy, filled with the scent of coffee and the sound of Spotify playlists. We didn't have kids yet, but we'd talk about it sometimes when things slowed down. But the thing is, they never really did. John's work hours grew longer. Sometimes he'd be gone for days. When he was home, he was tired, distracted, or already thinking about the next project. We still loved each other, but it felt like we were living parallel lives. We'd pass each other like ships in the night, polite, familiar, but emotionally distant. At first, I didn't mind. I poured myself into my work. I started attending local networking events for creatives and small business owners. That's where I met Brad. Brad was different. Easy to talk to. Present. He noticed the things Jonathan had long stopped commenting on, like when I changed my hair or landed a big client. He made me laugh. At first, I told myself it was harmless. Just talking. Just a friend. But it didn't stay that way for long. It started with coffee. Then lunch. Then messages late at night, ones I'd quickly delete when I heard John coming. I felt alive again in a way I hadn't in years. It was like remembering a version of myself I had forgotten existed. But it was also terrifying. I knew I was crossing lines I couldn't uncross. And then, one night, it happened. I invited Brad over when I thought Jonathan was out of town for work. I lit candles. I wore his old college shirt, the one that always made me feel cozy and reckless at the same time. We weren't even trying to be careful. For a moment, it felt like the rest of the world didn't exist. Until it did. The sound of the front door opening made my blood run cold. I hadn't even heard the keys. I'll never forget the thud of the bag hitting the floor. I rushed to the door, hoping, praying it wasn't who I knew it had to be. There he was. Jonathan. Holding takeout and flowers. His eyes scanned me, then Brad, and then something inside him just broke. He didn't yell. He didn't ask questions. He just turned and walked out, leaving a silence that screamed louder than anything I've ever heard. I wanted to run after him, but what could I even say? I had betrayed him. The man who stood by me for almost a decade. The man who trusted me enough to build a life with me. I tried reaching out. Calls, texts, showing up where I thought he might be. I told him it was a mistake, and it was. But I also told him the truth, that I had felt alone for a long time. That I missed him, even while sleeping next to him. That I didn't cheat because I stopped loving him, but because I stopped feeling loved by him. Eventually, we sat down to talk. It was the hardest conversation of my life. I admitted it hadn't just been that night, it had been going on for a few months. I told him I hadn't planned for it to become physical. That I didn't set out to hurt him. But intentions don't erase consequences. He asked me if I loved Brad. I told him the truth, I don't know. Because how could I know? Was it love, or just someone filling a void I didn't know how to fix? We tried, for a while. Counseling. Long talks. Separate rooms. But too much had changed. There was too much silence between us, and eventually, even the trying started to feel performative. We filed for divorce 2 months later. Quietly. No drama. Just heartbreak. People often paint infidelity as black and white, someone's the villain, someone's the victim. But the truth is so much messier. I was wrong, completely. I crossed a line and broke the heart of someone I once vowed to protect. But I also know that a marriage doesn't fall apart in one night. It erodes slowly, invisibly, until one day, something snaps. It took a long time to face myself after that. I started seeing a therapist. I stopped blaming Jonathan and started taking real accountability for my choices. I cut things off with Brad. It wasn't sustainable. It wasn't real. It was escape. Today, over a year later, I'm learning to forgive myself. I don't expect others to. I'm not asking to be seen as the good one in this story. But I do believe people are more than their worst decisions. I am. If you're in a relationship where you're feeling invisible, say something. Before it's too late. Before the damage becomes permanent. And if you're the one who's been betrayed, I hope you know your worth hasn't changed. You didn't deserve it. You didn't cause it. And healing is possible. I'm still figuring out who I am without the label of wife. But for the first time in a long time, I'm facing myself with honesty and starting, slowly, to build something better out of the wreckage I helped create.